Welcome to On the Brink, the show that talks about all the reasons not to become an entrepreneur. Every fortnight, we speak to an accomplished founder about the fine line between breakdown and breakthrough. These conversations take a look at all sides of our guest's journey, from the struggles, risks, and stresses that come with the territory to the purpose that propels them forward anyway. This show is brought to you by Brinc, a global venture accelerator empowering the world's game changers since 2014. I'm Shailene, and today we are with River Paige, creative director and co-founder of Yugen Agency, a global climate tech design agency dedicated to driving positive impact. How are you, River?
Hey Shay, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're ready, let's just dive right into the questions.
Let's do it.
So, as a strategy driven agency that helps startups stand out, get funded, and grow fast, as you've put it, it's such a spectacularly specific niche that you've both chosen. Can you tell us the story of how you and your co founder, Matthew, came to found Yugen Agency? And of course, what drew you both to focusing on climate businesses?
Sure. So yeah, let me take you back a little bit then. So Matthew and I actually met when we were on the road before this agency life. We were both former van lifers, and that is where our paths crossed. Yeah. So this was back in 2021. COVID was very much present. I was traveling with my wife and kids in my van, and he was traveling with his now wife in his. And we met at the most northerly point in Scotland on the NC 500 route. And that's how our paths crossed. So super crazy, super random, I know.
Sorry to clarify, so no one was, is it quite an empty, isolated space?
It
Like where
is,
you
yeah.
guys
Yeah,
like no one was
super isolated. And the funny thing
Wow.
is, it turns we actually lived like half an hour away from each other back in the Midlands as well. So yeah, super
Okay.
random. We
Yeah.
got talking and figured, soon discovered that we were both designers, him from more of a product and UX background, and me
Mm.
from more of a brand and web focus. And that just like instantly formed a bond, and we hung out for pretty much the remainder of the trip. So that's how we met. Moving on from there, we would often chill around campfires in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere, talking about this, I guess, like a bit of a dream, putting our skills and experience together to produce this kind of company or agency that would better the planet and align with the values, our personal values as well. And it was shortly after we returned after this trip in 2022, I think it was, where we got together in a coffee shop to hash it out. We just had nothing more than this idea, plenty of naivety, a ton of drive. We collectively pulled in, I think it was £100 to form a limited company, buy our domain, and set our sights, starting this thing, which is Yugen Agency.
Wow. That really puts things into perspective. The fact that it started with a random sort of meet cute in a sense
Yeah.
in the isolated areas of Scotland, and now you guys are here. So of course, that brings me to my next question. In the field of strategic design and branding, I'm sure you guys have faced your fair share of unforeseen challenges. Could you elaborate on the typical challenges that your clients face when it comes to design and branding, or the challenges that you face when you're trying to help them with that?
Yeah. So plenty of challenges that we help them with. I'd say maybe two or three come to mind, and they are differentiation, being able to communicate value effectively,
Right.
and visual brand. So number one, then differentiation, the ability to garner attention, stand out. How do we get noticed? How do we position our company in a meaningfully different way to gain a
Yeah.
competitive edge? Number two, communicating value. How do we create value to our clients, our customers, not just the technology, but how do we impact the beneficiaries, planet, people, and profit? And then how we show up visually and verbally, how we present ourselves to the world in a way that resonates with our intended audience and gets people rallying behind our cause and ultimately gets buy-in, right?
So when your clients come to you, do you find that they already understand the full significance of these aspects of branding, or do you find that half the job is actually getting them to understand how essential it is to think about visual branding in those aspects?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably the latter. They understand the importance of part of it, but
Mm,
usually they self-diagnose and say, we think we need a website or we think we need this. And we
yeah.
have the ability to zoom out and say, actually, where is it you are currently at? And what is your desired future state? What are the steps to get there? And actually
Yeah.
able to advise and come up with a strategy that helps them to get there. Maybe it was a website, maybe that's just a smaller piece of this bigger puzzle.
In terms of recent projects, is there one that comes to mind that you can talk about that you're especially proud of? And if you could elaborate on any of the pain points that you and your team have experienced in accomplishing the project.
Not one per se, but an ongoing partnership that we are proud of is with Airhive. We're proud
Yeah.
of this creative partnership because we actually met them through Brink, and
Right.
we got to see them grow and flourish from when they were early days in the accelerator last year, where we helped them with their initial pitch deck rehaul. It's them securing investment, launching pilots, and we continue to see them progress to this day. And we've worked on numerous projects together, from pitch deck design to crafting a new brand identity, video
Mm.
production, even 3D animated renders. I'm currently working on them with the new projects as well. I would say that the video project we did with the 3D animated renders as well, that
Mhm.
was probably a project that we're most proud of. It was a massive collaborative effort, bringing together designers, animators, videographers, all united around to capture in this Marvel Airhive
Yeah.
and help them tell their story. So it was really exciting. And to your point about the pain point as well of that
Yes.
project, it was very difficult. Timeline, all the moving
Mm.
parts of bringing together all these different talent to make it happen. There was very little room for error, and yeah, we were
Imagine.
happy to pull it off there.
So, considering the sort of demanding expectations, I'm sure you guys have had tight deadlines in the past and late nights. But in terms of challenges with entrepreneurship, can you name an aspect that you found the most challenging and why?
Yeah, we've been faced with so many challenges. A few that come to mind in the beginning was getting enough work through the door. How do we get work? And how do we make a name for ourselves? Being perceived as a viable option, being a relatively young agency with younger founders. But probably the hardest was building an agency reputation from pretty much scratch. Matthew and I
Yeah.
worked as freelance and in-house designers for about 8 years each before founding the agency. I had no former agency experience. So at first we saw this as a weakness, but now I think it's what makes us unique and increases our value. We're not bound by the ways things are typically done. We test,
Yeah.
we reiterate, we see what works, what doesn't, and we're constantly learning and finding new ways to improve the value to our clients that we set out to deliver.
Fantastically put. Yeah, I can imagine how challenging that is. And I'm sure that's something that many founders can relate to. And that brings me to every entrepreneur has pivotal moments that shape their path. Can you think of one moment that you can share and what it taught you?
Yeah, it's something we're working on and
Mhm.
we're starting to get better at, but it's saying no to new work and saying yes to pretty much every opportunity has gotten us to where we're at now. And we feel like we're in a great place. But we're starting to see that turning point now where our yeses need to be a little bit more carefully selected
Mhm.
and carefully considered. But you need to make sure we're saying no to the wrong opportunities so we can make sure that the yes is available to the projects where it's a perfect fit
Yeah.
and we know we can contribute significantly to helping them reach that end destination, really move the needle there and helping them grow.
I think that this is a sentiment that sort of resounds through the entrepreneurial community because one of the
Yeah,
other portfolio companies that I interviewed for this series, Aria Health, the founder of it, is named Georgina, and she said the exact same thing. I asked her, what do you
yeah.
think about saying yes to every opportunity? And she was like, yes, in the beginning, you have to take hold of every opportunity that you can. But as time goes on and you start to develop, you need to be strategic about it. You got to say yes to the right things and no to the things that just wouldn't work. Right.
Exactly. And that rings true with the challenge we had at the beginning of not knowing how to get work in, but now it's saying yes to the right things, 100%.
Absolutely. And reflecting on this entrepreneurial journey, can you share an experience that reaffirmed your commitment to the mission that you guys are carrying out?
I think finding how we're able to deliver value to as many startups as possible, this was a challenge. Earlier on, we wanted to serve any and every startup, and we quickly realized that perhaps earlier startups were unable to afford our services, so it wasn't like a viable business model. So we moved to serving later stage startups, but it constantly bugged us that we were unable to serve them because to realize the impact that we want to, we believe serving those earlier stages is just as important. So that's why we looked for things like we do this in a range of ways now, publishing content and free resources, free mentorship, and partnerships like as such as the one between us and yourselves, Brink, is a way for us to fulfill our mantra of leave no startup behind and serve those earlier stage startups. But it was a challenge to get there.
In terms of taking risks, have you always been comfortable with the notion of that?
Yes, I have always been comfortable taking risks. I don't know why. I've always had a what's the worst that can happen mindset. Like you can always
Yeah.
return to the state you were at before.
So would you say that those are the strategies that you use to mitigate that feeling that sometimes arises when you know you're about to take a leap of faith?
Absolutely, yeah. And then not strategy as such, but what really helps is having a co-founder. Matthew and I get to experience the highest highs, lowest lows. We check in with each other, we accommodate for each other. I have a busy family lifestyle, and he's really accommodating and there for me there. So, yeah, that's also just like instrumental in both helping us keep our sanity and
Yeah.
being comfortable taking risks together.
Phenomenal. So, in the early stages of Yugen Agency, were there any critical aspects that you reckon you initially overlooked? And if so, would you handle anything differently today?
Yeah, we pretty much overlooked everything. We thought it would be easy for some reason, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. Everything has been hard. You solve problems, new ones come up. If first it was like just getting clients, then it was delivering on the promise, which was getting the right clients, then it was getting more of those, and the startup landscape, ins and outs, which is something we dove headfirst into, know not too much about. And yeah, just going into a space that we had no experience in. Yeah, so many challenges and things that we overlooked, but it got us to where we're at now.
Do you have any advice to founders who might be struggling with the same challenges as you? Yeah.
Find mentors and peers in your industry, build rapport with them. You'll find that they'll be really forthcoming to help. Someone from another agency background could have shown us the ropes and we could have avoided a lot of our initial shortcomings, can we say?
Yeah.
So yeah, just network like crazy and find those that are a few steps ahead of you. They've done it before, and when they're ahead of you, they can tell you not to step in a certain place because you'll fall down there. So you
Yeah.
can eliminate some of those pitfalls and make your journey a bit easier.
I think that brings me very nicely to my next question, which is why are you speaking with me today on the Brink? Is because you are a mentor for Brink's climate tech program that's coming up. So, what can I first
Yeah.
ask? What motivated you to accept this role?
We wanted to help as many climate tech startups as we could. We wanted to learn more about the startup landscape ourselves. We wanted to get the opportunity to meet with founders. So there's a few reasons why. And we wanted to find a way to serve those that perhaps couldn't afford our services yet. So we jumped at the chance to do this. We get to rub shoulders with and learn from the experts in the Brink team. We've met great people, Janina, Elisa, that carry a wealth of experience that have even helped us to shape our approach when it comes to helping startups, when it comes to things like pitch decks.
And within the scope of branding and pitch decks, what common pitfalls will you be very vigilant about in the upcoming cohort of startups? Do you know
Yeah.
what you are going to be looking out for?
Yeah, so we're actually working a bit more hands-on with the founders of this cohort to produce their pitch decks for them.
Yeah.
So we've worked together with the team at Brink to form a proven blueprint for the pitch decks, which has had a lot of people's eyes on it, and it's been a very collaborative thing. And we're facilitating the founders in gathering all the information and are working pretty vigilantly to ensure that there's no gaps in their pitch decks. Focus will be on crafting a deck for the startups that stands out and says more with less through the art of visual communication.
That's so exciting, and we are definitely glad to have you guys on board again. My final question is, what is the next milestone you are most excited for Yugen to achieve?
We're excited to see the startups progress to the next stage of their journeys. A lot of them are now looking to go to market. It's just really exciting to see the work we've done come full circle, come to fruition, and seeing the next phases unveil themselves. As for the agency, Yugen, we're seeing crazy growth at the moment. We're moving to some new offices next week, constantly expanding the team, expanding our service offerings. So again, just furthering the value that we can offer to our clients and continue to support them as they grow.
Crazy. From one conversation in a coffee shop to this, that's an amazing achievement. Congrats. We do have a quick game that we want to play with River. It's called On the Brink of Greatness or Madness. And it's very simple. We challenge our guests with a series of scenarios about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. And River, your task is to judge each scenario as either madness, meaning a definite entrepreneurial faux pas, do not do it, or greatness, a strategy or habit that could pave the way to success. So I'm going to just jump right in, so you feel free to give short answers or elaborate if you want to, whatever you feel like. Okay? All right. Okay. Number one, skipping sleep to work more hours. What do you think?
Greatness in the beginning, madness later on.
Love that. Networking at every single event.
Yes, greatness.
Yeah, love it. Reading at least one book a month.
The reality is madness. I tried to do it and did it for a long time, but there's just times where there's more important things in business.
Investing a significant portion of profits back into the business.
Greatness.
Love it. Taking at least one day off a week to completely disconnect from work.
Oh, I think that's greatness. I think that's something that I'm working towards, but just haven't fully cracked it yet. But we do it a lot, but not every week, I'd say.
Number 7, profit over values.
Madness. Madness. I think if you have your values in check, your brand values, that will lead to connecting you with the right audience, creating the differentiator and the unique value that you can deliver, and therefore lead to better profit as well.
Yeah, it's great insight. Thank you. And last one, starting a business with your friend.
Greatness.
Yeah. I thought you might say that.
Yeah, Matthew and I are great friends. We do a lot together. He's got me into country music and all kinds of things that I've never entertained before. We spend a lot of time together, and it's great to see this journey together with him.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today, River. It's been such a pleasure. Would you like to add anything before we close this off?
Thanks so much, Brinc, for having us. We're excited to work with the startups in the cohort, and just to continue furthering our partnership and working towards that same goal together.
Absolutely. We're very excited for the very same thing. To find out more about Yugen Agency, please visit yugenagency.co. And to learn more about all the other amazing founders and mentors in Brinc's ecosystem, head to brinc.io or subscribe for the next episode of On the Brinc. And we'll see you next time.